The newest entry, at least at the time of recording this, to the Silent Hill franchise, Silent Hill F, had more details revealed yesterday. The game is actually taking place in 1960s Japan. And I've seen a lot of people already kind of causing a bit of a stir over this, saying, well, it's not a Silent Hill game if it's not in Silent Hill. I mean, that's the whole point, right? And I think kind of forgetting some of the things that happened in the past with the series. I know that after Team Silent departed the series, a lot of people try to headcanon it out. They're like, well, anything after 3 or 4, no, because people even dislike 4 for some reason. I think it's great. But that said, this isn't the first time that the series had a game set outside of Silent Hill, the town. Now, 4 was actually a game set pretty much entirely in Ashfield, and while it did use some ways to get around the fact it wasn't in Silent Hill, it's not the first time. And I did want to talk about this today for a few minutes, basically some of the ideas in this game, some of the risks it's taking, because 1960s Japan is certainly a big departure for the series compared to previous titles. But that said, I did have a question of the day for you, which is, what do you think about all of this? Like, do you accept Silent Hill games that aren't set in Silent Hill? And some people are going to immediately say no. But to those people, I do kind of challenge you, isn't Silent Hill more than just the town? You know, isn't this series about these deeper psychological themes, psychological horror, deeper meaning, and all of these different things within that horror? For me, that's kind of what Silent Hill is. Now, I'm obviously still interested in games taking place in the town. It's not like I say leave it behind. But one of the main reasons why they wanted to go outside of that was to grow the series beyond just one locale, which I personally think makes sense. Now that said, this game itself does look very beautiful, but also terrifying, and they did describe it in a way, and the heart of it, as finding beauty within horror, or within terror. This game is going to be made actually by a Taiwanese development company, Neobards Entertainment, and the writer of the game, who actually was behind When They Cry, who is Ryukishio7, and I'm sure I always pronounce names wrong, I always hear about it in the comments, is someone who's definitely going to be bringing their own twist to this game. Now that said, I will say this, before we even get into more details, people who are unexcited or upset about this game, we will talk a little bit more about that. I do want to stress that there are other projects coming. Like, this is not the only Silent Hill thing happening. There's very obviously going to be other remakes. Personally, I'm hoping that they remake 1 before anything else. There's been a lot of rumors of remaking 3, and while I would still like to see that, I still think that we need both, 1, a sort of Metal Gear Solid Master Collection style collection of the original games. Yes, I know they lost the source code, they lost builds of it, but at some point I do think those things should be better preserved. And secondly, I think Silent Hill 1 would need to be actually remade before 3, because those narratives tie together very, very well. I think it would be a mistake to go right to 3. But my point is, there are going to be other projects. That said, this one to me looks very interesting and like a big risk for the series, because this is following a younger protagonist named Hinako, and she is actually living in a fictional town in Japan, which is based upon a real town in Japan. Now, Hinako was living her life as an ordinary teenager, that is, until her town is suddenly shrouded in fog and begins to change in a horrific way. Now she must explore a town she no longer recognizes while solving puzzles, fighting strange enemies, and doing everything she can to survive in order to face the ultimate decision that she must make. This is a tale about a beautiful yet terrifying choice. And beauty and terrifying are the themes that kind of go on into this. Now, one thing that's great to see is they actually got back an OG with this game. You have series composer Akira Yamaoka, who is back again, and he's been involved in this series basically since the original Silent Hill. So I think that that's great to have him on the audio design and the soundtrack. Right there, we've already got classic Silent Hill sound, we've got the Silent Hill core themes, self-discovery, going through basically this terrifying world where you're not sure what's real, you're not sure who's real, you're not sure what has deeper meaning and what doesn't. Those things are all here. But that said, I think that what's interesting about this is they're going to have traditional elements of Japanese culture mixed in with the Silent Hill ambiance, the core of Silent Hill and these psychological themes. And it does kind of make me think that this is going to be a big risk for the series. Now, here's why I say that, and I don't mean it in a bad way, but when you look at Silent Hill, some of the risks it has made have not paid off over the years. And I do think that that's why some people are skeptical of the game already. I've seen a lot of people actually be very negative about this game before it even came out. Those same people I do kind of try to remind, people were also very negative about Silent Hill 2's remake, and whether you liked it or not, it went on to be extremely popular, and a lot of original fans loved it. It brought in a lot of new fans, so I'm kind of like open to it, but I've seen a lot of people be very skeptical of it taking place outside of Silent Hill. Now, like I said before, Silent Hill 4 was not in Silent Hill, really. It was basically in a nearby town of Ashfield, and this is something they've done before. The idea of the Silent Hill land itself, that effect that is in that land, regardless of what you read into it, you know, with the Native Americans and the origins of it and the tainting of it by the cult, the order, and all these different things and their god, there are a lot of elements there that make you wonder, right? There are a lot of elements there in the original games of things like, well, is the Order's god real or not? There are compelling arguments that it is. There are compelling arguments that it isn't. There are compelling arguments that it is nothing more than a mindless monster. And there are compelling arguments that it is a real malevolent entity living in almost a dimension next to ours, like accessible by some, but not all. And so you get into these ideas with Silent Hill of what is the power? What is the power of Silent Hill? Is that something that can act in other places? And while I know in the past there have been people even tied to the series saying, well, this is a thing exclusive to Silent Hill, for me, I'm looking at this and it's hard to believe that in a world with a supernatural power existing, that it wouldn't exist anywhere else. You know, that this couldn't be something that also manifested elsewhere, or that there couldn't be these other dimensions or other worlds or other things that affect people or can come into this world or pull people into that one. And so for me, I don't really have a problem accepting this. I don't have a problem accepting a Silent Hill game if it is keeping alive those themes of psychological horror. You're bringing back one of the original people behind the entire art design of sound into the mix with the soundtrack and the audio. I don't have a problem accepting that as a possibly good game. But that said, there are other times that the series has branched out in new ways, and they didn't go so well. The more Western developed Silent Hills, things like Homecoming, you know, things like Downpour, a lot of those games were not received well. I actually did enjoy some of them, but the step off, the step down from classic Silent Hill to that era is huge. It's a pretty big drop off. So that's an example of them branching out Silent Hill and, you know, kind of going away from what it was and doing something new that didn't pay off. That has happened before. There is a reason people are skeptical whenever something changes. But so was Silent Hill 2 Remake. Remaking a game, totally new studio, getting in there, a studio people did not believe in, that I remember always saying, hey, let's wait and see what comes out of it. Let's give it a chance. Let's see what happens. And people were like really fucking mad about that. Just that statement of, hey, let's just wait and see. People were pissed. You know, I remember being one of the few people when the original gameplay was shown for that Silent Hill 2 remake, because to some extent, I actually do understand game development, game design, how rough things are in the earlier stages. I remember seeing it and thinking, you know, this actually could turn out to be a good game. Why don't we just wait? And I remember people saying it looks like shit, it's gonna be terrible, look how bad this gameplay is, look how rough these animations are. I think a lot of those people don't understand anything about game design, that a lot of that stuff is going to be rough up until, say, the final year of development. Like, they don't understand that when you see an early build of something, it's not actually going to be what it is later on, which is why for years we've gotten all these random CGI trailers that don't show gameplay, because the game isn't in a state where it's polished enough to show you, because people will rip it apart even if it turns out to be a good game. It's also why for years we would have all of these things where they would lie about things and show us a game running on like a super high-end PC and pretend it was an Xbox 360, because they knew that if they showed you where it was actually at that moment, that people would rip it apart. You know, a lot of these games are not able to be shown to the public without getting crucified until like the final 6 months to maybe year of their development. They're just going to get shit on. So I remember when Silent Hill 2 was coming out, and it was just anybody who liked it was a shill, anybody who thought it could be good was an idiot, and then it came out and it sold gangbusters, did super well, and people loved it. So I guess my point is, I'm open to it. I'm not saying it's going to be a great game. We don't know yet. The game isn't out, but it is a risk. Sometimes Silent Hill has taken risks as a series and it's paid off, and sometimes they've landed straight on their face and basically massacred the series for years at a time. Like after the Western fall off, you know, where you gave these Western studios Silent Hill and it was nowhere near as good as it used to be. That killed the series for a very long time. The Silent Hill HD remaster collection, where they had lost that code and they had given incomplete builds to the developers, and that came out and it gave a bad name to the series. It was a risk. It was a dumb thing to do, because really those games should have been redeveloped for a few years longer, and they should have never lost what they had in the first place. It was a risk they took and it didn't pay off. It flopped. I'm open to the risk, but it's certainly not something that's going to come without a possibility of problems. And I've noticed already that there are people rejecting the game. There are people already embracing the game. And I'm kind of looking at it thinking, well, I really hope this is good if they can combine these classical Japanese cultural elements with this. If they can actually do that and combine it with this level of psychological horror and terror, I think this game could be something really special. But we gotta wait and see. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'm interested to hear that as well. If you enjoyed the video, you want to leave a like, I appreciate it. Hey, you can leave a dislike, does nothing negative for me, just pushes the video, so I appreciate that too. We also do have a Fortnite code, which is DJAY123. That right there actually helps out our channel a lot if you put that in before purchasing something on a game like that. We have an Amazon affiliate link, by the way, where I've actually got a whole horror list. If you're a fan of the scary, the creepy, there is a whole list over there. You click the link, you buy something, we get a small commission. And we do also have our own store, cosmobunny.shop. We make coasters, keychains, trays, and more out of recycled paper products. These can be comics, manga, magazines. They're damaged. They're discounted books unable to be sold by places. Instead of throwing them into the trash and into landfills, which happens with a lot of businesses, unfortunately, we take those things, turn them into a new piece of art through a new medium, transforming them, and we make sure that the rest gets recycled. All of those things go to help us out. Discount code DJAY123 for 10% off your first purchase there. Have a fantastic day, and as always, everyone, stay shui.